You also want to sell rubber for me. In 2024, Jerry Seinfeld stood on stage in front of tens of thousands of fans and told jokes. But something wasn't right. His own kids no longer find his jokes funny. They ask, "Is that a bit?" when he tries to connect. In 2014, he told a shocking story on national TV. He said to Brian Williams that he might have autism. He said that his brain works in a different way. The signs are becoming more clear now that he is 71. His fixation on habit has reached an unhealthy level. He is getting farther away from his family. What's going on with comedy's biggest star will shock you. Jerry Seinfeld was born on April 29, 1954, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents, Kalman and Betty Seinfeld, came from a long line of families that had been affected by war, exile, and custom. Kalman, his father, had left Hungary after World War II and worked as a sign painter. But what made him stand out was that he could make jokes. His service in the war gave him a lot of funny stories, which he took home with him in a mental folder. During dinner, Kalman turned it into a show by telling old army jokes and funny observations that made everyone laugh. Betty was Jerry's mother, and her family was Jewish and from Syria. Salim and Salha Hasni, her parents, came to the United States from Aleppo. They were registered as Turkish, like many others who came from Syria, which was ruled by the Ottoman Empire in 1917. That mix of gritty Hungarian life after the war and old Middle Eastern stories became the stage Jerry was born into. He and his older sister Carolyn grew up in Massapequa, Long Island. In a home where humor wasn't just okay, it was necessary to stay alive. Along with a mythical thread, his life was made more interesting by the fact that his great-grandmother, Diagn, was from a line of rabbis that went back to King David. Jerry never forgot where he came from. They weren't exciting, but they went deep. Calsigns, his dad's small shop, was more than just a place to paint letters. It was a place where people could quietly be creative. Jerry would draw and talk about broken appliances or nosy neighbors for hours on end. People really liked one of the signs he wrote by hand that said "spewing water, not kidding." Some even asked for copies. The way people laughed at him, even though they didn't know him, stuck in Jerry's mind early on. It wasn't about cheers. Finding the right words to say something small was the point. Kalman always told his kids to look at life, laugh at it, and maybe even make something out of it. Folks in Cal's family made a joke about how his signs were mentioned on Seinfeld many years later in the Fusilli Jerry episode, like a secret fingerprint from his dad's past. Massapequa wasn't known for much, but Jerry could get everything he needed there. Dry sense of humor, a quiet feud with Carolyn, and the ability to see small things that everyone else missed. When he was 8 years old, Jerry became crazy about comedy, just like other kids were crazy about baseball. He would stay up late to watch The Tonight Show and copy the moves and timing of guests like Buddy Hackett, who became his hero very quickly. His bedroom became a stage for him. He kept a joke file, which was made up of actual handwritten notes with punchlines and setups that he practiced over and over again. He told people he wanted to be a stand-up comedian when he was 10. It wasn't a childhood dream. It was a targeted, almost scientific, search. Before going on stage in front of other people, he would practice his acts in front of a mirror, changing pauses, sharpening his words, and trying out different laughs on himself. It wasn't cute. It was getting ready. That goal got even stronger in high school. He joined the drama club at Massapequa, but he didn't like the plots. He learned how to make up lines on the spot and would sometimes add jokes to important scenes. The teachers were mad. The kids loved it. In one school show, he added a line about food in the cafeteria that made everyone laugh out loud on the first night. It wasn't supposed to happen. That's what made it true. He did it over and over. Putting humor into life. He began acting at events even when he wasn't in school, and over time he became known as the guy who always makes you laugh. It stuck to that personality. He worked on a farm in Israel for the summer when he was 16. It wasn't fun, it was work, but he was introduced to a lot of different voices, cultures, and misunderstandings, which interested him. He remembered how a Russian couple fought over a light bulb and a Greek family fought over how to wash the dishes. This was funny not because of what they said but how they said it. This was early stuff. He started to think more deeply about how tiny things can bring people from different worlds together. He later used those fights to make sets about meals, airports, and family vacations. But back then, it was just a question. Family vacations were centered around visiting Jewish heritage places, which helped him feel more connected to his culture but also made things tense between his siblings. Some people paid more attention to his older sister Carolyn. Jerry replied in the only way he knew how, with a joke. He liked to call himself the hidden son or the Seinfeld family ghost. Don't think these were jokes. They were shields. He learned how to turn upset, angry, and hurt feelings into something soothing. He would later make that reflex, which turned awkward feelings into observational humor, his signature. Everything about him came from how he felt at the time. Didn't care, but watched. Not loud, but smart. Jerry started going to SUNY Oswego in 1972 because he liked how the school was near a lake. But being alone hurt him a lot. After 2 years, he moved to Queens College in 1974, which was closer to the comedy pulse in New York. He could take acting and communication classes at Queens, but more importantly, he could go to open mic nights. He finished in 1976 with a BA in theater and communications, but what really taught him was what he did outside of school. In his junior year, he started sneaking into bars like Catch a Rising Star to watch pros play while taking notes and practicing. In 1975, his first show didn't go well. He tried making jokes about airplane food, but they didn't work. But late-night comedian Jay Leno told him to keep going. Yes, he did. He wrote his jokes on yellow legal pads and kept them in thick accordion folders. Every week, he tried them on both classmates and people at the club. He made a joke about dorm fridges. The one who was the cleanest always had the most food stolen. About socks that don't match. About people who knock and don't wait. It wasn't exciting with these bits. They were little. They were real, though. He learned that small, everyday things, shared frustrations, and routines were more powerful than any joke that was made up to make a joke. It got better for him. More clear in his tone. By 1976, he wasn't just another guy trying to get attention. You should keep an eye on him. When he finally finished, his dad, Kalman, pushed him to get a stable job. He tried, Jerry. He hired a temp service. Last for a week. He knew this wasn't what he was made to do. He had to have that mic, that crowd, and that risk. He quit because of this. Hit open mics with more seriousness. I stayed up longer, wrote more, bombed more, and got back up. There was no other plan B. His unwillingness to give up and be uncomfortable night after night became what drove him. The fame he was after wasn't it. It was clear. In 1976, Jerry Seinfeld joined the busy world of stand-up comedy. He was nervous and had only 5 minutes of material to work with. He was in the smoky areas of Catch a Rising Star, a New York club known for giving up-and-coming artists a chance. His first paid jobs didn't even give him $50, and some nights he had to sleep on a friend's couch. He barely had any clean clothes and didn't have a car. The jokes he wrote were about weird roommates or the strange silence in elevators, but he kept going on stage, sometimes twice in one night and sometimes for only 3 people. Every set helped him get better at a style that didn't involve swearing or yelling, but rather sharp observations made at just the right time. By 1977, club owners were starting to notice how well he did his act. He wasn't just another comedian looking for 5 minutes anymore. Rodney Dangerfield then asked him to be in an HBO show. Everything changed that one night. His name became known to people outside of New York. In 1980, just as things were getting better, he went to an audition for a part in a show and was turned down because he looked too ethnic. Being turned down hurt a lot. But he didn't go after acting jobs, instead, he got more into speaking. He moved in with the mic at Bud Friedman's Improv Club. He made his sets more precise and tight. He made jokes about cereal boxes, food on planes, and the reason why some people tie their shoelaces twice. He was free because he wouldn't change himself to fit a Hollywood mold. It helped him find the best voice for himself. In January 1981, he was on An Evening at the Improv and did a routine about marriage offers that made people laugh out loud. A man buys a ring and nervously asks his friend to marry him. The friend says, "That's a nice ring, but it's not for me." 10 more TV jobs came after that. Then, in May 1981, he quit The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Johnny laughed that night. People in the crowd leaned in. People in America paid attention. He was no longer just a New York comic after that. A lot of people knew his name. He showed up on Late Night with David Letterman more and more in 1982. The bits were close together. There were real laughs. Still, he lived like a comic who was having a hard time. Rent checks didn't go through. He was going to be kicked out of his apartment one cold night, so he sold his watch to pay the landlord. He remembered that moment. Afterward, he said it almost broke him, but it showed he wouldn't give up after getting this far. Then 1987 came along. HBO made a movie called Stand Up Confidential by him. A joke about a toupee that was made up on the spot made people wheeze when it played on September 5th. There was real buzz. He was more than just a stand-up comedian, according to the producers. That special got him a deal to show it in other places, which led to something bigger. At the same event that year, he met Larry David. Both of them loved the little things that most people didn't notice. They sat around and talked about why shirts always have too many buttons and how running into someone you dated feels like a courtroom drama. The conversation turned into a pitch for a comedy with no big plots or dramatic arcs, just the little things. NBC didn't get it. The pilot was said to be weak in one letter. The poll of the crowd said that no one wanted to see more. But Rick Ludwin, who worked for NBC, was so sure of the idea that he stole money from a Bob Hope show to fund it. And let Jerry and Larry use it to make 4 more shows. There was an episode of The Seinfeld Chronicles on July 5, 1989. It went off. That wasn't the end, though. They changed the name of the show to Seinfeld in 1990. Jerry started to use real events. He went to a New York soup shop one day where the owner threw people out for not ordering right. He turned into the soup Nazi. And the event became a story. For you, no soup. The word spread like flames. Al Yagana, the real guy, was very angry and once threw Jerry out of his shop for making fun of him. The show was funny because it was based on real events that were just a little over the top. By 1991, Jerry wanted to be in charge more. He wanted to do more than just act. He made plans to write. That didn't happen often. Stars didn't run their own shows, but he fought and won. Scripts were changed at the last minute. Things got strange in episodes. NBC was scared. But the people who saw it loved it. The show finally made it into the top 10 in its 3rd season. Everything had his print on it. At that point, it felt less like TV and more like something new. Elaine wasn't even in the original pitch, but the show needed everyone to be on it. Julia Louis-Dreyfus then showed up. In her audition, she talked about how awkward airline toilets can be. It wasn't written down. She made things up. That moment made it official. She had the same beat as Jerry. She was right at home. The show ran in 1992. A bet on who could not touch themselves for the longest time. They never said a word, though. They danced around it instead. It became popular to use euphemisms like "of my domain." The episode was based on a real competition that Larry David and his friends held. The first time, 18.5 million people watched it. It went from 1 million to 20.1 million when it was shown again. It was named TD Guide's #1 show of all time and won an Emmy. Even though it was rude, only 31 people complained. Jerry pushed for being real. Tom's restaurant at 2880 Broadway was used as the inspiration for the cafe in The Showmonks. The outside was shot in New York, but the inside was rebuilt in Los Angeles. A writer's strike in 1993 almost stopped everything. Jerry used his stand-up skills since he didn't have any lines to follow. The team made do. The show became less stiff and more real. It felt more alive after that hit. George Costanza pretended to be a marine scientist in February 1994. With the help of a golf ball, he saved a whale. That story came together a few hours before it was filmed. Jason Alexander had 30 minutes to learn the last speech by heart. He gave me the golf ball part that same morning. It became one of the most watched shows in the history of syndication. By 1998, Seinfeld had agreed to pay $1 million for each show. That made him the TV star with the most money. It could cost up to $3.5 million to make each episode of the show. He made a total of $267 million, which includes money from advertising. He didn't coast, though. He helped writers improve their work, shaped every show, and pushed every detail. The last show aired on May 14, 1998. 76.3 million people saw it. They went to jail because they broke a Good Samaritan rule. People didn't like it. Fans were split. Each 30-second commercial was worth $1 million. A lot of people spoke out against it, but it didn't matter. It was over with the run. The show had already changed TV. After it was over, Jerry made an extra $267 million that same year through reruns. Each repeat made him about $1 million. He didn't do any more shows. He went back on tour instead. From 1998 to 2000, more than $100 million worth of tickets were sold to his shows. Fans still came to hear him talk about weird things about cell phones and cereal boxes. Bill Kirchenbauer, a comic, said that Jerry stole a joke in 1999. It had to do with airplane peanuts. They made a deal outside of court. After that, Jerry put together a list of over 40,000 jokes by organizing them in legal pads to keep himself safe. He then made the documentary Comedian in 2002, which was about building his act from scratch. It showed that they were weak. Jerry even got scared. Even Jerry had doubts about himself. A made-for-TV B-movie with his voice made $287 million in 2007. The jokes were very Seinfeld, but the show was not like it had been before. It was silly, fun, and surprisingly effective. Watching the President of the United States get into a baby blue 1963 Corvette Stingray as if it were any other morning was a strange sight. But that's exactly what happened in December 2015 when Jerry Seinfeld pulled up outside the White House gates to film the most famous episode of comics getting coffee in their cars. It was planned to never go on a public street. The Secret Service didn't like it. Still, they were able to make a slow loop around the White House grounds. A strange mix of politics and pop culture in the form of 2 coffee cups and 2 big names. Barack Obama did not get scared. He joked that kids loved him and said that kids ages 0 to 8 thought he was funny. Jerry laughed along with the conversation and made jokes about healthcare and football. He did this while navigating the turns with the cool confidence that only a comedian could have next to the leader of the free world. Too much ease was present for it to be real. However, there were more than 52 million viewers. There was a lot of banter, coffee sips, and even a mention of Between Two Ferns. Some people were expecting stiff talks or can lines. It was funny for a short time, and everyone in the White House knew what was going on. After 2 years, fans were shocked by something else. Jerry, which came out before Seinfeld, was on Netflix in 2017. However, it wasn't just another show. This one went past the present. Jerry was standing on the same small stage where he first told jokes in 1976, at the New York comic strip. There were yellow legal pads from the mid-1970s all around him, filled with his first jokes. Things that looked like old notebooks were turned into jokes that still worked. One joke made fun of racism against people who are left-handed. Someone else asked Superman why he wore his underwear over his pants. People laughed even though some of them were so easy they were like warm-ups. It wasn't just the humor that caught people off guard. It was the fact that Seinfeld had saved those pads for more than 40 years. People weren't just looking at a set. They could see that the person coming back to the starting line knew how far he'd come. The home movies, pictures of the kids, and other raw early material didn't need to be fixed up. Fans knew they meant something from the start. After that came Broadway. Even the reviewers were surprised by that one. In 2019, Seinfeld joined the cast of The Betrothed, a musical comedy that had already been put on more than 1,000 times. He wasn't acting, though. He showed up out of the blue, taking over the mic between scenes and making planned scenes feel real and messy. He asked the people there what the stranger things were that happened at their weddings. Then he talked about what they said. There is no screen or safety net. There is no room for that on Broadway. A lot of the players stuck to the script. It didn't bother Jerry. He mixed the confusion of stand-up with the beat of musical theater. Some people went to the show just to see him. The improvised parts were so well-liked that the show ran longer. It wasn't even about the story anymore. People came to hear what he had to say next. Everything froze during the plague in 2020, but Jerry didn't. For 23 Hours to Kill, a show that streamed through Zoom, he went virtual. It felt like stand-up comedy put together for living rooms. He didn't have a live audience. The Beacon Theater stage was empty, and laughter that had already been taped was added to keep the beat. It cost $25 to get in. People paid that much for a stream, even though it seemed like a lot. A lot of them. It made $20 million for the show. Some of the jokes were about dead phone batteries and family members getting tense while they were in lockdown. He made the jokes work even though there weren't many people in the room. He even added parts where fans could talk to him from their screens, showing that clear voice alone was enough for comedy. This was a warning shot for the business world. It was shown by Seinfeld that you could get big crowds with just timing and tone and no seats or setting. Then the one that no one saw coming, it wasn't Frozen. The movie, which came out on Netflix in 2024, turned the simple story of how Pop-Tarts were made into a full-blown corporate crime story. Cereal giants went to war in this story. It was Post who tried to steal Kellogg's ideas. There was mischief, a scientist who didn't follow the rules, and even steam pressure that caused toaster explosions. It wasn't true, but it didn't matter. Really important was the fact that 50 million people saw it in the first 7 days. It was funny how Seinfeld made a fake meeting in Congress and made a kitchen snack into a national emergency. It was a fake documentary that twisted history until it broke. But it was really a masterclass in how to tell a story. He turned a moment that most people wouldn't have given much thought into a show. The real information was just a starting point. His life wasn't always funny, but everything else was his own idea and worked. In June 1993, Seinfeld met Shoshana Lonstein in Central Park. She was 17 years old. He was 39 years old. She was still in high school. That year, they began dating. By 1994, they were on the cover of People magazine, which said, "Look who's dancing." It didn't make people angry. It made me curious. Seinfeld told Howard Stern that he didn't know she was that young, but he didn't say that they weren't dating before she turned 18. After going to George Washington University, she went to UCLA. It ended after 4 years, but the gap stayed. 22 years have passed since then. The timeline then made people look twice. It still does. Then June 1998 came along. Jerry got to know Jessica Sklar. She had just come back from her wedding. Then married to Eric Nederlander for 3 weeks. In New York City, Jessica met Jerry at a gym. In just 4 months, Nederlander asked for a divorce. He said Jessica lied to him. He said he was tricked and caught off guard. He bought her clothes from Italy that cost $25,000. It didn't matter at all. Jerry asked her to marry him by the end of 1999. They have 3 kids together after being together for more than 25 years. But that start still hangs over them. It was a mess. It happened quickly. It was true. He told Brian Williams something strange in November 2014. He said he thought he might be on the autism spectrum, but that he hadn't been diagnosed with it yet. His answer showed that he thinks about himself in a long-term way. He doesn't understand that small talk. Some told him he was brave for coming out. Others told people not to self-diagnose. Autism groups talked about it. It made sense for fans, though. Everything about him fit: his need for order, his accuracy, and his style. He didn't ask for a name. He only said that his brain was different. Then, on the red carpet in 2017, he wouldn't hug Kesha. She came up to him with her arms open. 3 times, he pulled back. She left feeling bad about herself. Later, he told reporters that he doesn't like giving hugs to people he doesn't know. The video went crazy. Memes went crazy. Some people said he was rude. Some people said he was just being himself. It fit with the story. Jerry was in charge of the situation. He always does. Chaos doesn't bother him unless he's making it. Since 2001, his Seinfeld Foundation has given millions of dollars to help study into autism and help children in need. In 2020, he gave $5 million without giving his name. Some people said it was real. Others said it was to fix his image after what was said in Spectrum. The money made a difference either way. He didn't talk about it much. He didn't have to. It was a small part of a very big impact. In 2025, that will be worth at least $950 million. Some say that he's already very rich. Even though Seinfeld stopped in 1998, you can still watch old episodes every day. There was more than $4 billion made from syndication deals. 15% of the back end belongs to him. Netflix paid $500 million for the right to stream in 2019. Jerry gets money in his account every time an episode airs anywhere. A lot more money comes in from stand-up shows and comedians getting coffee in their cars. The way he made his money isn't through shows, but through repeat business. He wrote a book called Hall of Fame that came out in 2024. It had jokes that were never told on stage. They all wrote on yellow legal pads. Some were about getting old, and some were about dying. One made fun of greeting cards from Hallmark that don't say anything inside. It was used by someone else in a funny way. The surprise was that these weren't just trash. They were very sharp. They never got their chance. People saw the funny graveyard. The thoughts that almost came true. All of them were still important to Jerry. His job is to help young comics since 2022. He shows them how 80 drafts were needed to fix a Superman joke from 1976. It takes at least 3 changes per joke for him to teach compression. He writes one joke every day on a calendar and marks it with an X. A lot of them die. The good ones go up. It's not magic that he uses. It's math. There is muscle. It takes hours. In 2023, he talked about a parenting mistake. His grown children no longer find him funny. They ask, "Is that a bit?" When he talks, he says that holidays aren't where the best times happen. Their breakfast is cereal at 11 p.m. What does he mean by 3 poison peas? They are praise, pleasure, and fixing problems. He says that kids need to fight, not be perfect. He doesn't try too hard to be a great dad. He just keeps showing up. He is getting ready for a world tour in 2026 now, in 2025. It's known as Laughing Matters. The tickets were sold out in 30 places. Things like socks, getting old, AI, and how nothing really changes are on his list. AI can't write a sock joke, he says. He most likely is right. It will be a high-tech stage. There will be guests you didn't expect.